Good morning, Rabid Wombat, and whoever else might be out there. How's it going? It's Monday. We're getting toward the end of the year here, which is exciting. When is New Year? Next week. End of next week. Cool. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Patty. Hey, Mom. Excuse me. We had a fun weekend with Warhammer show on Saturday, which was really great, and then a very interesting, a very crafty Saturday night stream with Jessica and the Homebuddies, which was very cool. All right, so I thought we would do. This might be probably our second and final episode of Irish mythology. What I did this time was I went through the website. What's the name of it? Celtic something or other. Let me bring it up so I can read it. But there is a site that has some cool stuff. It's the Celtic Literature Collective, and I'll post a link to that in the Discord if anybody is interested. But it has a lot of great information and links to some old translations, public domain-ish, of old manuscripts, which is, again, like when I want to learn about a mythology, I really want to read original sources, which can be difficult, especially in things like this, where yes, there are some manuscripts, but they're not great. They don't really tell a lot. And what I found as I was reading through endless pages of manuscripts is that a lot of what we have left of Irish mythology is, and these people had this child, and these people had this child, and these people had this child, and they lived in this place, and they lived in this place, and they lived in this place, and then they went here, and then they went there. So a lot of it is just like lists and genealogies, which can be interesting, but not so much fun to read, and especially without context, right? So I'm going to read, I pulled out, though, a few stories that I thought were interesting, and I'm going to attempt to read them. I am going to mangle the pronunciations left and right. I know this. So if anybody who's watching who knows the proper pronunciations, feel free to pop those in chat. I may or may not go back to something, but at least you can share that knowledge with the rest of you who are watching. So let's start. Okay, so a lot of the, again, what we have in the manuscripts, a lot of the books from these Irish times are books of invasions, books of takings, as they say. So it's like, these people came and attacked this place and took it over, and then later, these people came and attacked this place and took it over. So we've got a lot of that kind of stuff, and a lot of cycles, right? People come, take over, other people come, take over. So in the Libor Gabala Érenn, the book of the takings of Ireland, or the book of invasions, and this was translated by the Irish Texts Society, which again sounds like a very old translation that is probably not the best anymore, but interesting for our part. So this one has a bunch of the different the cycles, right? We talked about this a little bit last time. There's the earliest mythological cycle, and then we get down into the Tuatha De Danann, and then the Milesians later. So it's the different sort of generations of inhabitants of mythological Ireland. And this is around section 55. So that they were the Tuatha De Danann who came to Ireland. In this wise they came, in dark clouds. They landed on the mountains of Conmec Rain in Connachta. I know, again, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, and I have no idea how to do it right, so I'm just going to keep going. And they brought a darkness over the sun for 3 days and 3 nights. Obviously, we're going to see some things that we see in other mythologies. The number 3 is, of course, supremely important. Oh, now, before the Tuatha De Danann came, it was the Firbolgs who were living in Ireland and ruling. So then here in section 56, they demanded battle of kingship of the Firbolg. And that is variously spelled. One word or two, depending on your pleasure. A battle was fought between them, to wit, the first battle of Meg Tured, in which 100,000 of the Firbolg fell. Thereafter they, the Tuatha, took the kingship of Ireland. Those are the Tuatha Dea. Gods were their men of arts, non-gods their husbandmen. They knew the incantations of druids, and charioteers, and trappers, and cupbearers. Welcome, Eridens. Hello. It is the Tuatha De Danann who brought with them the great fall, that is, the stone of knowledge, which was in Temer, whence Ireland bears the name of the Plain of Fall. He under whom it should utter a cry was King of Ireland. Ooh. Thank you so much for your resubscription. 9 months. That's so awesome. And I got a drop emote. Cool. Thanks. The Firbolgs. Yeah, and again, Firbolgs have appeared in video games and Dungeons and Dragons all over the place. Okay, so Pete says Tuatha De Danann. Okay. I like it. Tuatha De Danann. I will attempt to remember that and do that pronunciation going forward. Okay, so they brought a stone with them, the Stone of Knowledge. And a lot of stones appear in a lot of ancient mythologies being important. Often they are not necessarily the seat of power, but we see stones landing in places, and then it becomes an important landmark and something to mark out, like, here something important happened. And sometimes we sort of see that it's based on later people who lived there saying, oh, that stone, that's actually connected to the, like this really crazy mythological story. A great example of this is in Greece, the Omphalos stone, which was said to be the actual stone that Zeus's mother gave to his father to swallow in place of Zeus. She wrapped it up in a blanket, pretended it was him, and then when he vomits up the stone and the children, the stone landed on Earth, and then there it was today in ancient times, and they could point to that and say, look, that's the stone from these stories. Welcome, Keen. Yes, Infinity Stones. This is the Stone of Knowledge. I like that one. So he under whom it should utter a cry was King of Ireland, until Cuchulain smote it, for it uttered no cry under him, nor under his fosterling, Lugaid, son of the 3 Fines of Emain. And from that out of the stone uttered no cry, save under Khan of Temer. Then its heart flew out from it to Tailtin, so that is the heart of Fal, which is there. It was no chance which caused it, but Christ's being born, which is what broke the owners of the idols. Thank you. Shirt is pretty awesome. It does make me 20% cooler when I wear it. So another thing that is problematic when we read about Irish mythology, and we saw this with Norse mythology, is that when a lot of these stories were written down, it was a little bit later. And already the culture and the religion had changed, and Christianity had moved in. So that will color the stories that we read about earlier events and gods and heroes and things like that. So we see there's this cool stone. It talks sometimes when someone who's going to be king is nearby. And then it broke, and its heart flew away because Christ was born. So there you have it. Now, Nuada Ergetlam, we'll find out what that means in a second, was king over the Tuatha De Danann. Thank you, Pete. For 7 years before their coming into Ireland, until his arm was hewn from him in the first battle of Meg Tured. He was the first man of the Tuatha... Where is it? Tuatha De Danann, who fell in Ireland by the hand of Nurcon Ua Semoin in the first battle of Mag Taraid. Ernmis and Ektak and Etargal and Fiacra and... Wow. They all fell in that same battle. Somebody else took the kingship of Ireland till the end of 7 years, till the arm of Nuada was healed. A silver arm with activity in every finger and every joint. Which is pretty cool. And that's what his name means. Silver arm or silver hand. And yeah, so he had... Essentially, he was a cyborg. He has a metal arm that is fully articulated, and that's pretty rad. Nuada, also interesting to note, is the name of the prince of the elves, roughly the elves, in Hellboy 2, and a name that I included in my book, and his twin sister as well. So it's a little plug there. And it does say, with activity in every finger and every joint, which Dien Kekt put upon him, Credne helping him. So I assume those are the sculptors / smiths, but I don't know for certain. All right, so Tailtew, daughter of Magmor, king of Spain, queen of the Firbolg, came after the slaughter was inflicted upon the Firbolg. Dianke. Okay. Wow. Yeah, some of the constructions of the vowels. Oh, god of healing. Okay, that makes sense. Right, because his arm healed even though it was a silver arm. Thank you, Pete. Okay, let's skip ahead here. And sometimes these stories just randomly turn into Latin right in the middle of it, and it's like, okay, I remember at least enough of this to try to figure out what it says. To return to the Tuatha De Danann, Nuada Ergetlam fell in the last battle of Meg Tured, and Macha, daughter of Ernmis, at the hands of Balar the strong smiter. In that battle there fell Ogma at the hands of Indek, son of the De Danann, king of the Fomor. Okay, a lot of people are died, blah, 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 blah. After the death of Nuada and of those men, Lu took the kingship of Ireland, and his grandfather Balar the strong smiter fell at his hands with a stone from his sling. There are a lot of people who die from sling stones. Lu was 40 years in the kingship of Ireland after the last battle, and there were 27 years between the battles. So we get a little bit of chronology and genealogy all in one. Pete says, Irish needs its own alphabet. Yeah, that would help. So again, even in that story, it's about like, these people came and smashed these people, then these people came and smashed these people. Just start reading it in Latin. I mean, like I said, sometimes these translations at least, which again are admittedly, and the website says these are older translations. Yeah, I don't know if they just they just wandered off, but sure. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 4 jewels of the Tuatha De Danann from the Yellow Book of Lacan. There were 4 cities in which the Tuatha De Danann learned wisdom and magic, for wisdom and magic and deviltry were of service to them. Again, I think that's the Christianity speaking. They have wisdom, they have magic, and deviltry. These are the names of their cities: Phalius and Findius, Goirius and Murius. From Phalius was brought the Lea Phale, which is at Terra, and which used to cry out, oh, this is the rock, and which used to cry out under each king who assumed the sovereignty of Ireland. From Gorius was brought the sword, which belonged to Nuada. From Findius was brought the spear of Lu, and from Murius was brought the cauldron of the Dagda. 4 wizards were in these cities: Fessus was in Folius, Esrus was in Gorius, Uscius was in Findius, and Semius was in Murius. From them, the Tuatha De Danann learned wisdom and knowledge. No battle was maintained against the spear of Lu or against him who had it in his hand. No one escaped from the sword of Nuada after Lai had been wounded by it. I think that should be after he had been wounded by it. And when it was drawn from its warlike scabbard, no one could resist against him who had it in his hand. Never went an assembly of guests away unsatisfied from the cauldron of the Dagda. And the Lia Fail, which is at Terra, never spoke except under a king of Ireland. Okay, we've heard that several times already. So there are 4 cities. In each of the 4 cities, there is a wizard, and each one creates a magical item for this pantheon. And notably, 2 of them are weapons, right, which you'd expect, a sword and a spear. But 2 of them are, well, one is more useful. There is the cauldron, which we hear that never an assembly of guests went unsatisfied by it. So they use it for cooking or brewing something. And then, of course, there's the talking rock that always proclaims the king until Christ was born. I mean, he's the king of everything, right? So, oh, there you go. That's cool. So Pete says you can actually see the rock in Terra, which is also cool because, again, like I was talking about in Greece, if you go to Delphi today, you can see the Omphalos stone. It's not necessarily the one that was there in ancient times, but they do say, like, look, it's right there. It's the stone, which is neat, even though it's... Yes, Savage Punch. It's the character from that video game. I love that video. So good. Also interesting here that the weapons that are made, so the spear of Lu and the sword of Nuada, yes, they're very powerful. No one can escape. No one can so in the case of the sword, if you're wounded by the sword, you will die, right? And you cannot defeat whoever is holding the spear of Lu. But notably, for both of them, it's not so much that that specific character is unbeatable, it's just whoever has it. So even these stories have built into it, okay, these gods, these heroes or gods will get these magical items, but they're going to be passed on. They're not going to be the only ones who ever use them, which is cool. Some of the historians indeed say that the Tuatha De Danann came to Ireland in a cloud of mist, but this is not so, for they came in a great fleet of ships. Makes sense. And after arriving in Ireland, they burnt all of their vessels. And from the cloud of mist that arose from them, some say that they came in a cloud of mist. This, however, is not true. For these are 2 reasons why they burnt their boats: that the race of the Fomorians might not find them in order to prey upon them, and that Lu might not come in order to contend against Nuada for the sovereignty. Concerning them, the antiquary composed this lay. And we're about to break into song. Erdens, people are free to be both offended and entertained and anything else by that amazing trailer. I think amazing works no matter what your specific opinion is about it. Okay, so then there's a lay, a song that's in the text. I am not going to attempt to sing it, but I will read it because it has some pretty words in it. The Tuatha De Danann of the precious jewels, where did they find learning? They came upon perfect wisdom in druidism and in deviltry. Sing it in the original Irish? Oh, I wish. Yeah, and Fomorians also pop up in a bunch of different places. Fair Iardanel, a prophet of excellence, son of Nemed, son of Agnomen, had as a foolish offspring the active Beithic, who was a hero of cleaving, full of wonders. The children of Bethic long lived their fame. The host of valiant heroes came, after sorrow and after great sadness, to Lachlan with all of their slips. And there are also typos in here, so I wonder if that's supposed to be ships. 4 cities, just their renown, they held in sway with great strength. On this account they passionately made competition for learning their genuine wisdom. Phallius and bright Gorius, Findius and Murius of great prowess, from which battles were won outside, were the names of the chief cities. Morphus and noble Eris, Uscius and Semiath, ever fierce, to name them, a discourse of need. These were the names of the sages of their wisdom. Morphus was the poet of Phallius himself, Ingorius was Esrus of keen desires, Semiath was in Murius the fortress of pinnacles, and Uscius was the fair seer of Findius. 4 presents were fetched with them hither by the nobles of the Tuatha de Danann, a sword, a stone, a cauldron of worth, and a spear for the death of great champions. From Phallius came hither the Lea Fail, which shouted under the kings of Ireland. The sword in the hand of the nimble Lugh, from Gorius it was procured, a choice of vast riches. From faraway Findius over the sea was brought the deadly spear of Nuada. From Murius was conveyed a huge and mighty treasure, the cauldron of the Dagda of lofty deeds. Dagda. The king of heaven, the king of feeble men, may he protect me, the king of royal parts, the being in whom is the endurance of scepters and the strength of the gentle race. Tuatha de Danann, the end, Amen, as it says in the text. So there it actually, and here's another thing that you find in all mythologies, but in these Irish stories in particular. So we read a section that is, again, like nearly contemporaneous writing, the manuscript suggests. And in that manuscript, then they say, and here's a little song about it. And in the song about it, and in the previous section, there are parts that kind of contradict each other. But that's fine. It doesn't matter. Was it a sword? So here it's the sword of Lugh and the spear of Nuada, where it was the opposite that in the text that came right before it. I do really like, though, that in talking about these gods, that there are people and their gods and people that are honored for their wisdom and their craftiness, not just their martial prowess and their ability to kill people. So a lot of the stories that are best preserved deal with the hero. Cuchulain, which we talked about last time a bit. Cuchulain with his warp spasms. So weird. So strange. So I found a couple of interesting ones that we'll look at. So first we get, and there are stories, again, because he was such a mighty hero, in a couple ways parallel to Hercules or Heracles. Not entirely, but in some ways. But just like Heracles, about... Now, Pete, I've seen some different pronunciations for this one. With a k sound for the second syllable, or not. But I'll go with yours today. Cuchulain. But I have seen it transliterated with a k sound in the middle. So yeah, but he was a great hero. So we have stories of his conception, his birth, his childhood, his young adulthood, and like every phase of his life. In fact, here are the boyhood deeds of Cuchulain. "This boy," said Fergus, "was reared in his father's and his mother's house, by the seaside northwards in the plain of Murtem, where someone gave him an account of the Macrad or boy core of Emain Macha, how that Concobar divides his day into 3 parts. The first being devoted to watching the boy corps at their sport, especially that of hurling. The second to the playing of chess and draughts. The third to pleasurable consuming of meat and drink until drowsiness sets in, which then is promoted by the exertions of minstrels and musicians to induce favorable placidity of mind and disposition. So there's a bunch of boys, and they spend their days doing sports and hurling things. In the second parts of the day, they play chess and other games. And then at night, they consume immense quantities of meat and drink and listen to musicians until they fall asleep. And for all that we are banished from him, continued Fergus, by my word I swear that neither in Ireland nor in Scotland is there a warrior his counterpart. The little lad then, as aforesaid, having heard all this, one day told his mother that he was sent on a visit to this group to test the boy corps at their own sports. She objected that he was immature and ought to wait until some grown warrior or other, or some confidential of, and I know this one's not right, Concobar should, in order to ensure his safety, bind over the boy corps to keep the peace toward him. So Cuchulain wants to go and check them out, but they're like, no, he's too little. Wait till one of them comes to get him. He told his mother that this was too long an outlook, that he could not wait, and that all she had to do was set him a course for Emain Macha, since he did not know in which direction it lay. It is a weary way from here, said the mother, for between thee and it lies Sliab Fuait. Give me the bearings, said he, and she did so. Away he went then, taking with him his hurley of brass, his pail of silver, his throwing javelin, and his toy spear, with which equipment he fell to shortening the way for himself. So he's got a bunch of toys, and he's going to occupy himself on the long journey. He did it thus. With his hurley he would strike the ball and drive it a great distance. Then he pelted the hurley after it, and drove it just as far again. Then he threw the javelin, lastly the spear. Which done, he would make a playful rush after them all, pick up the hurley, the ball, and the javelin, while, before the spear's tip could touch the earth, he had caught the missile by the other end. So you've got this super athletic, powerful young boy. He's on his way on a long distance of traveling. He's got a bunch of stuff, so he comes up with a game. And I'm assuming this game led to... I'm assuming this is like the origin story for some sport or activity. But essentially he has all this stuff, so he hits the ball, he throws things, and then he throws a spear, and then he runs forward, grabs them all before he can catch the spear that he just threw. It sounds like it would make the trip a little bit more fun. In due course, Cuchulain reached Emain Macha, where he found the boy corps, thrice 50 in number, hurling on the green and practicing martial exercises with Folomane at their head. The lad dived right in among them and took a hand in the game. He got the ball between his legs and held it there, not suffering it to travel higher up than his knees or lower down than his ankle joints, and so making it impossible for them to get in a stroke or in any other way to touch it. In this manner he brought it along and sent it home over the goal. In utter amazement the whole corps looked on. But Folomane cried, "Good now, boys, all together meet this youngster as he deserves, and kill him, because it is taboo to have such a one join himself to you and interfere in your game, without first having the civility to procure your guarantee that his life should be respected. Together then, and at once attack him and avenge violation of your taboo, for we know that he is the son of some petty Ulster warrior, such as without safe conduct is not accustomed to intrude into your play." Several things going on here. Number one, we have this weird ball game where Cuchulain traps the ball with his legs, never higher than his knees, but no lower than his ankle joints. And while he's holding it thusly with his shins, I guess, Nobody else can attack it or try to get it. And then he, I guess, shuffles over and then scores a goal with it. I don't know. I'm confused by this game. And then this one leader of the boys says, okay, now attack him and kill him because he has broken our taboos. Now we see, even in my cursory reading of Irish mythology, there are a lot of taboos about things. And sometimes they're really, really bizarre. And one of them is that if you're about to join a game, apparently, the taboo says that you have to greet the people playing the game and ask that if you join their game, they won't kill you. And if you break that taboo, then they are free to attack and kill you. Sure. So when the leader says, attack him, kill him, the whole of them assailed Cuchulain and simultaneously sent their hurleys at his head. He, however, parried all the 150 and was unharmed. Wow. The same with the balls, which he fended off with his fists, forearms, and palms alone. So I guess in this game you are allowed to hit them back with your hands. Gesha? Which one was that one? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, and again that's got it. Yeah, and we see taboos. Yes, got it. Right. I guess that's true. They're all throwing at him, and he can block it with his arms and his hands. Their thrice 50 toy spears he received in his little shield, and still was unhurt. Okay, now he has a shield. In turn, now Cuchulain went among them and laid low 50 of the best. 5 more of them, said Fergus, came past the spot where myself and, is it Conabar, sat at chess play with the young lad close in their wake. So 150 of them attack. He blocks them all with his little shield and then just knocks down 50 of them almost in one blow. Where did it go? Concabar? Hello, Peg Junk. Welcome. We're butchering Irish mythology. Is that Conavar? Conavar? Hold, my little fellow, he said. I see this is no gentle game thou playest with the boy corps. And good cause I have too, cried Cuchulain. After coming out of a far land to them, I have not had a guest's reception. How now, little one, said the king, knowest thou not the boy corps conditions, that a newcomer must have them bound by their honor to respect his life? Conhabar. Okay. I knew it not, said the boy, otherwise I had conformed and taken measures beforehand. So it's interesting that by their honor, they have to respect a newcomer and respect his life, but only if he asks for it. Okay. 'Tis well, said the king. Take it now upon yourselves to let the boy go safe. We do, the boy corps answered. They resumed play. Cuchulain did as he would with them, and again laid out 50 of them on the ground. Their fathers deemed they could not but be dead. No such thing, however. It was merely that with his blows and pushes and repeated charges, he so terrified them that they took to the grass. So he didn't actually just slaughter all of these boys. He just stunned them. What on earth is he at with them now? Asked Conhabar. I swear by my God, said Cuchulain, that until they in their turn come under my protection and guarantee, I will not lighten my hand from off them. They did this at once. Now, said Fergus in conclusion, I submit that a youngster who did all this when he was just 5 years old need not to excite our wonder, because, now being turned of 17 years, he in this cattle raid of Cooley cut a 4-pronged pole and the rest, and that he should have killed a man or 2 or 3 men, or even, as indeed he has done, 4. Now that last part connects to a much larger series of tales, the Cattle Raid of Cooley, the Tame Bow Cooley, which we're going to talk about a couple of the stories therein. So this is one of the... Here, you know what? Let me... Another series of things in Irish mythology are a bunch of these cattle raids. These cattle raid stories. So this one involves a lot of the characters that we heard a little bit about last time. And we'll continue. It's mainly about Cuchulain and Maeve, the queen, and just a lot of small battles, a lot of duels. Okay, so now we are in the Cattle Raid of Cooley, and we're gonna, like I said, I picked out a couple of the small stories that looked the most interesting. So first I found the killing of the squirrel and of the tame bird. I was like, what is this? And some of these stories are these stories within the larger story. They're very brief. So like I said, there was all this fighting going on. Maeve is attacking and sending all of her champions against Cuchulain in general. So then Cuchulain made a threat in some place that wherever he saw Maeve, he would cast a stone at her, and that it would not go far from the side of her head. That he also fulfilled. In the place where he saw Maeve west of the ford, he cast a stone from his sling at her, so that it killed the pet bird that was on her shoulder. Maeve passed over the ford eastwards, and again he cast a stone from his sling at her east of the ford, excuse me, so that it killed the tame squirrel that was on her shoulder. Hence the names of those places are still Made in Togmail, Squirrel's Neck, and Made in Eoin, Bird's Neck. And Othstreth, Ford of the Throw, is the name of the ford over which Cuchulain cast the stone from his sling. So he's a really good stone sling thrower. And he forecasts. It's like Babe Ruth, right? Like pointing to where it's like, I'm going to send that sling. It's going to go so close. It's either going to hit, it's not going to hit her in the head, but it's going to be like right by her head. And sure enough, at one point as she's crossing, she's got a squirrel on her shoulder. Bam, gets the squirrel. And the next time, there's a tame bird on her shoulder. Bam, gets the bird. And then, of course, those locations are named after what happened. Squirrel's Neck and Bird's Neck. So then in the Cattle Raid of Cooley, there's a long series of, like I said, duels with Cuchulain and some of these other characters. So here, this is going to be to the combat of, I'm just going to call him Cur, C-U-R, with an accent over the U. I'm just going to say Cur. The combat of Cur with Cuchulain. And so it starts off with a scene that starts off a lot of these, is people saying, okay, who's going to go fight Cuchulain now? You're going to do it, right? It's not my turn. You're going to do it? Wait, no, I have to do it? Oh, shit. Okay. The men of Erin, Ireland, discussed amongst themselves who of them would be fit to attack Cuchulain. And what they all said was that Cur, the hero, son of Daloth, should be the one to attack him. For thus it stood with Cur. No joy was it to be his bedfellow or to live with him. And they said, even should it be Cur that falls, a trouble and care would be removed from the hosts. Should it be Cuchulain, it would be so much the better. So essentially, they pick the hero, who obviously is a warrior, but they pick him because nobody else likes him. He has no friends. And they're all saying, well, if he dies, I mean, at least it gets rid of an annoying person. So either way, it's a win-win. Kerr was summoned to Maeve's tent. "For what do they want me?" Kerr asked. "To engage with Cuchulain," replied Maeve. "Little ye rate our worth. Nay, but it is wonderful how ye regard it. Too tender is the youth with whom ye compare me. Had I known I was sent against him, I would not have come myself. I would have lads enough of his age from amongst my people to go meet him on a ford." "Indeed, it is easy to talk so," quoth Cormac Colongus, son of Conabar. "It would be well worth while for myself if by thee fell Cuchulain." And yeah, like I said, some of these translations are a little old, so we've got a lot of ye's and quoths and things like that. "Howbeit," said Kerr, "since on myself it falls, make ye ready a journey for me at morn's early hour on the morrow. For a pleasure I will make of the way to this fight, a-going to meet Cuchulain. It is not this will detain you, namely the killing of yonder wildling Cuchulain." I slip into pirate talk a little bit. "Then early on the morrow morn arose Kerr Macdaloth. A cart-load of arms was taken along with him, wherewith to engage with Cuchulain. And he began to ply his weapons, seeking to kill Cuchulain. Now Cuchulain had gone early that day to practice his feats of valor and prowess. These are the names of them all. So these are all of the abilities, the feats of Cuchulain, the mighty hero. And there's this list. The apple feat. Now, it doesn't say what any of these are, and these are F-E-A-T, feats, not foot feats. So we can imagine what these feats might be, and he's practicing them. They're all for feats in battle. The apple feat, and the edge feat, and the level shield feat, and the little dart feat, and the rope feat, and the body feat, and the feet of cat, 2 T's, and the hero's salmon leap, and the pole cast, and the leap over a blow, and the folding of a noble chariot fighter, and the gay bolga, the barbed spear, and the vantage of swiftness, and the wheel feat, and the rim feat, and the over breath feat, and the breaking of a sword, and the champion's cry, and the measured stroke, and the side stroke, and the running up a lance and standing erect on its point, and binding of the noble hero around spear points. Yeah, Herodins, a lot of them do sound like sound like feats you would get, fighter feats in what edition was it where the fighters just got 1,000,000 feats, like every couple levels they would get a fighter feat. I like that last one, of course. Running up a lance and standing erect on its point, and binding of the noble hero. Now this is the reason Cuchulain was wont to practice early every morning each of those feats with the agility of a single hand, as best a wild cat may, in order that they may not depart from him through forgetfulness or lack of remembrance. So that's cool. He has all of these moves that he's gotten down, but he has to practice them so he doesn't forget. And there are a lot of them. And Macdaloth waited beside his shield until the third part of the day, plying his weapon, seeking the chance to kill Cuchulain. It was then Leg spoke to Cuchulain, "Hark! Attend to the warrior that seeks to kill thee." Cool. Yeah, they get one every other level. Then it was that Cuchulain glanced at him, and then it was that he raised and threw the 8 apples on high, and cast the 9th apple a throw's length from him, so that it struck on the disc of his shield between the edge and the body of the shield, so that it carried the size of an apple of his brains out through the back of his head. Thus fell Kerr also at the hands of Cuchulain. Wow. So all of that practice, and he kills him with an apple. Interesting. He throws 8 of them up into the air, and then the 9th one he brains him with it. Okay. And then they pick more people to go up against him. Okay, so last time I found that cool section that talked about the warp spasm of Cuchulain, right? He has this hideous transformation he undergoes in his rage. His organs flop out, his mouth opens, his eyeballs stretch and squeeze, and all this gross stuff. So also in the Cattle Raid of Cooley, there in section 17C, it gives the account of the appearance of Cuchulain when he's not in his spasm. And hello, Miss Priscilla, thank you. And yes, please add all of your knowledge about what I'm talking about, because I don't know all of it, especially pronunciations, though Pete has been helping me immensely. Early the next morning, Cuchulain came to observe the host and to display his comely, beautiful form to the matrons and dames and girls and maidens and poets and men of art, for he did not consider it an honor nor becoming the wild, proud shape of magic which had been manifested to them the night before. It was for that then that he came to exhibit his comely, beautiful form on that day. So he's out there to show off to the ladies, the older ladies, the younger ladies, the middle-aged ladies, and also poets and men of art. All right, you ready for this? Truly fair was the youth that came there to display his form to the hosts, Cuchulain, to wit, son of Sultame? 3 heads of hair he wore, brown at the skin, blood red in the middle, a golden yellow crown that thatched it. Beautiful was the arrangement of the hair, with 3 coils of hair wound round the nape of his neck, so that like to a strand of thread of gold was each thread-like, loose flowing, deep golden, magnificent, long tressed, splendid, beauteous hued hair as it fell down over his shoulders. 100 bright purple windings of gold flaming red gold at his neck. Oh yes, Squirrel, all the ladies. And again, Ms. Priscilla, I should say, the translation I'm reading is very old. I'm sure it's not the best. Excuse me. So he has multicolored hair. It winds about, it flows, it sticks out, it does all sorts of things, you know, as hair does. And it continues. 100 salmon-colored cords strung with carbuncles as a covering round his head. 4 spots on either of his 2 cheeks, even a yellow spot and a green spot and a blue spot and a purple spot. 7 jewels of the eye's brilliance was either of his kingly eyes. So he has some sort of cords as a covering wrapped around his head. He has spots, different color spots on his cheeks. And his eyes look like 7 jewels in each one. 7 toes to either of his 2 feet. 7 fingers to either of his 2 hands, with the clutch of hawk's claw, with the grip of hedgehog's talon in every separate one of them. So he has 7 toes on each foot, 7 fingers on each hand. Okay. Now the hedgehogs that I've seen in real life don't have impressive talons. So I'm not sure exactly what this is referring to. Maybe this is a different translation for an animal word. He also put on him that day his fair day dress. To this apparel about him belonged, namely, a beautiful, well-fitting, purple-fringed, 5-folded mantle. Excuse me. So we're going to hear about the beautiful clothing that goes on top of this magnificent body. Hold on one second. Excuse me. Woo! Hedgehogs only have strong grip for chili dog consumption. I mean, hedgehogs are... Yeah, I don't know. I don't think of their talons as being especially powerful. Who knows? So he has a purple mantle, like a cloak, a white brooch of silvered bronze or of white silver encrusted with burnished gold over his fair white breast, as if it were a full, fulgent lantern that eyes of men could not behold for its resplendence and crystal shining. A striped chest jacket of silk on his skin, fairly adorned with borders and braidings and trimmings of gold and silvered bronze, it reached to the upper hem of his dark brown-red warlike breeches of royal silk. So he's got all of this cool raiment in his outfit. A magnificent brown-purple buckler he wore, with 5 wheels of gold on it, with a rim of pure white silver around it. A gold-hilted, hammered sword at his left side, a long gray-edged spear, together with a trenchant by-spear for defense, with thongs for throwing and with rivets of whitened bronze alongside him in the chariot. 9 heads he bore in one of his hands, and 10 in the other, and these he brandished before the hosts in token of his prowess and cunning. Maeve hid her face behind a shelter of shields, lest Cuchulain should cast at her that day. Then it was that the maidens of Connacht besought the men of Erin to lift them up on the flat of the shields above the warriors' shoulders, to behold the aspect of Cuchulain. For they marveled at the beautiful, comely appearance he showed them that day, compared with the low, arrogant shape of magic in which they had seen him the night before. His equipment is interesting. He has a shield. It has 5 wheels of gold, and then a separate rim of pure white silver around it. So when we read about in Greek mythology, and we read about the shields of the heroes, they're often described as how many how many layers they have. And so again, it's like hardened leather, and it would be layers. So the 7 layered shield would be literally 7 thin layers of stretched and solidified leather, and then often in the front then would be some sort of a gold or other kind of metal section to the middle of it, and then a rim. Yes, gold is soft. Sometimes it was more of an alloy. It depends, or it was just for decoration anyway. But yes, they didn't have. There was no steel. There were no good metals. So yeah, here it's a magnificent brown purple buckler with 5 wheels of gold on it, and I'm assuming that means 5 circles, so 5 layers potentially, with an outer rim over that. And then he has a gold-hilted hammered sword at his left side, so theoretically for drawing with his right hand. And then he has a spear with a trenchant by-spear for defense. So I'm assuming that's a smaller offhand spear. And then thongs for throwing. And so this we know also from ancient times. Now, we often think in modern times of spears as, well, depending on how into things like Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy stuff you're into, but people often think of spears as purely throwing weapons, but ancient spears were both for throwing and for hand-to-hand combat. Again, depending on the situation. But spears could be outfitted with thongs. So essentially at the back end of your spear, there was a leather loop attached to the back of the spear. So essentially what you would do is with 2 fingers, you would hold... I'm trying to think, do I have anything here that I could... So you would hold it with fingers. It would attach to the back of the spear. So you would hold the spear, and then you could sort of, as you were holding it, you could whip it forward with the thong part to further propel the spear through the air. So that's what the thong is. And then it's got rivets to keep things together, and thus. Didn't the Romans... Yeah, the Romans, absolutely. In their... I'm blanking on the name that I'm specifically thinking of, but yeah, they had spears that they would use without throwing them, and they had backup weapons as well. I have a really cool book of ancient warfare. It's probably not current anymore, but it's really good, and it shows, like, especially for the Romans, as the Roman soldiery evolved over the years, like what they carried into battle, what their kit was, what their weapons were, and the evolution of that. It's really neat. I should show that at some point. So yeah, Cuchulain has all of this cool stuff. Right, and yeah, some spears were for throwing, some spears were not for throwing. Okay, so let's see. Oh, okay, cool. One more. So the violent death of Maeve. Now this section has a ton of names, and I'm just going to plow through them. It's the last section we're going to read, so just enjoy it. What is the cause of the violent death of Maeve, the daughter of Akid Fedlig from Temer? The 3 sons of Fingale were Connor, Anglenac, and Ekid Find and Ekid Fedlig. Now, Ekid Fedlig had 3 sons and 3 daughters. The 3 sons were Bress and Nar and Lothar. That is the 3 finds of Emin. The 3 daughters were Ethne, Uthak. For this reason, she was called Ethne Uthak, Ethne the Terrible. Namely, she used to eat the flesh of infants, so the children always disliked her to be mentioned. Oh, she's like the boogeyman. And Maeve of Crucu and Clothru of Crucu, concerning whom it is said, the 3 daughters of Ekid Fedlig, a report along the north, were Ethne, Maeve, and Clothru. Okay, weird. I love when these stories say, and there were these people, and then it was said that there were these people. Fantastic. Now, Clothru was queen in Crucu before Maeve took the sovereignty. That was by force from Ekid. The 3 sons of Ekid were attempting to take away the kingship from their father. Clothru came to hinder and to restrain them. Nevertheless, they were then proclaimed battle against Ekid. Clothru came to them. "Are you intending to outrage your father?" she said. "It is a great injustice that will be done." "It is indeed a necessity," said the youths. "Do you leave any descendants at all?" the woman inquired. "Not any at all," the youths said. "It is possible that you will fall in battle through your unrighteousness. Come to me," she said, "to see whether you will leave descendants with me, for it is my time of conception." That is done. Each man went in turn to her, and good came thereof, namely Ludrib of the red stripes, the son of the 3 Finns of Emin. "Do not come now," she said, "against your father. It is sufficient unrighteousness for you to have sexual union with your sister without coming to engage in battle with your father. That then hindered them from victory in the battle." Wow. Is there going to be a spelling test? No. For this section, no spelling, because I couldn't pass it. So the boys are going to attack gardeners. Hold on one second. So the 3 boys are going to attack their father. Their sister says, hold on now, that's not right. And you don't have any kids, so what's going to happen if you're killed? It's like, well, the boys are so then she has them have sex with her, and she conceives a child, and then is like, well, you know what? You had sex with me, so you're sufficiently unrighteous now. You don't have to go and attack your own father. All right. Okay, we've got a whole bunch more names coming up. Are you ready? Now, Clothru used to spend the tributes of Connacht in Innis Clothrand on Loch Ree. They say indeed that Maeve killed her, and that through her side the swords brought forth Furbid Mac Conhabar. So through her side the swords brought forth the child, and there's a note that says that is performed a cesarean section. Afterwards, the aforesaid Maeve assumed the kingship of Connacht and took Ailill into sovereignty with her, and she was wont to spend the tributes of Connacht in Innis Clothrand. And it was taboo for her not to bathe herself every morning in the well at the entrance to the island. So remember, there are all these taboos, things that you have to do or things that you must not do. Then once upon a time, Furby went to Innis Clothrand, and he struck a stake on the flagstone on which Maeve was accustomed to perform her ablutions, and he fastened a rope to the top of the stake, a stake that was as high as Maeve, and he stretched the rope back and forth across the lake. He bore the rope to his home. Whenever afterwards the youths of Ulster there wont to be playing, this was Furby's game. He used to stretch his rope between two stakes, and he was wont to cast between them, and he never ceased until he struck the apple that was on top of the stake. Okay, so he hammers in a stake, he draws a rope, he makes two stakes, he throws things over it. Now once upon a time there was a great assembly between the men of Connacht from the west and those of Ulster from the east around Loch Ree, and Maeve happened to be bathing herself early in the morning in the well above the self-same loch. "Beautiful is yonder form," said each one. "Who is that?" Furby asked. And again, I know it's not Furby, but somebody can help me how to pronounce that one. I'm going to go with Furby. So they all said, "Beautiful." "Who is that?" Furby asked. "The sister of your mother," all answered. Okay, ready for this? "He was eating a piece of cheese. He did not then tarry to seek a stone. He put the piece of cheese in the sling. When Maeve's forehead was turned toward them, he let fly the piece of cheese, and it struck her on the crown of the head, so that he killed her by the one cast in vengeance of his mother. That is the death of Maeve. Death by cheese. There you go. Nude, bathing, everybody's watching, and then struck and killed by a piece of cheese. As deaths go, noteworthy, for sure. Sorry for your ears if you're listening on headphones. And it is referred to as the violent death of Maeve. I mean, it certainly was sudden, if nothing else. Gives the new meaning to the phrase lactose intolerant. Take that with my cheese. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that was fun. I think that'll probably be it for Irish mythology, unless I find a really good book, which I might, and one day come back to it. Death by cheese does sound like a delicious snack. So we'll next week we'll embark on something different. I have a couple of options I'm looking at, but I promise you it will be interesting. Hopefully you've enjoyed this this bungling through Irish mythology, and thank you so much to the couple of experts who have popped into our chat to help out with that. Oh, you know what? Here, I'll share the link here to the site that I've been using if you're interested in checking it out. It is Mary Jones. And this site just has a ton of manuscripts and translations and things in actually in Irish and things in Latin. And it's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff here, and it links a lot of stuff to what is it? She uses some other website. Well, anyway. But anyway, if you want to, you can go on that website and play around. There's, like I said, there's a lot of neat stuff there. This week is holiday week, so kids are off school. Well, Benjamin anyway. I'll be streaming definitely tomorrow and Wednesday, so we'll have Toy Tuesday and Warhammer Wednesday. I don't think I'll be around on Friday, but should be streaming on Saturday as usual. So, you know, slight differences. I'll tweet and post in the Discord. If you're somehow still not in the Discord, make sure you get in there. We share lots of cool stuff in there, talk about stuff. I'm working behind the scenes with Zardoz, maybe others. We're working on something pretty cool for people to do. It could be an interesting group project for anyone who's interested. So we'll talk about that. We'll get to that. No rush. Lots of things happening. If I don't see all your wonderful names and faces later on this week, because again, I know there are holidays and people are doing this and that. Have a great holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. If you celebrate anything at this time of year, as Hanukkah is over, so we're done with that. There are other holidays happening, but be awesome. Next week is the end of the year. 2020 is over. Woohoo! So hopefully 2021 will be good. And yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for hanging out. It has certainly been an interesting year. Next week I'll do a retrospective next week of all the stuff that we've talked about and done so far this year. It looks like our good friend Pete is playing Hades, an awesome game. So I'm gonna raid Pete. So if you want to check it out, then do that. Yeah, I know, and most people are just home anyway. It's not like, hopefully most people are not traveling and going any places, so you're home anyway. But I know people are trying to do stuff for holidays. Yeah. So anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out today. Do join in on Jessica's channel later on today, because we will be reading Dune, or attempting to, or just having a lot of fun even if no reading actually happens. So that's on the Jessica Nerdy channel today at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I highly recommend it. We are definitely pro streamers, and it's always a great time. Okay, see everybody. We're going to go say hi to Pete and tell him to go faster in Hades. All right, bye-bye, everybody.